Michael Bentley is the founder of Euler. At its peak, Euler was one of the largest lending platforms in crypto until a $197 million exploit hit at the worst possible moment.
We found product market fit. We built something for other builders to come and build. The exploit happened 4 days after the birth of my son. We just had a flood of messages saying Euler's being drained. Just my heart absolutely sank. No feeling I would wish on my worst enemy. We're building an industry where the code is public. Everybody can come in and see. What's left are the protocols that can't be exploited. You end up having a system which is anti-fragile.
Hey, I'm Alessandro, and I research and host shows for 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, and this is Risk Takers, a series about the founders, builders, and investors behind crypto's biggest ideas. This isn't about price charts or market calls. It's about the risks they took, the mindset that drove them, and the stories that shaped their journey. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the show. Where are you based, Michael?
I'm in Leeds, a few hours north from here.
Yeah. Are you born and bred Leeds?
I am born and bred Leeds, yeah. Do you know it?
Yeah, of course. I'm from the UK.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right, yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the southwest, so grew up in Bath. I live in Bristol. Not too often in London, to be honest.
Couldn't really tell from you. It was like sort of British, but it's I couldn't place it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yours much easier to place.
Yeah. I'm
northern accent.
Although if I go, because I've lived down south quite a bit, now everyone in Leeds thinks I have a posh accent.
Yeah, maybe it is a posh northern accent.
Yeah, it's refined now. I have to enunciate my words and everything.
How have you found this conference so far?
It's been amazing, yeah. It's been absolutely packed, like absolutely wake up, meetings, absolutely slammed throughout the day. Just, really, really packed. Yesterday started with JP Morgan on a panel. Then I had a guy from 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 and Stanley from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, panel with them, dueling on the panel. That was good fun. Then we had our big event last night, which was also absolutely packed, and I was just cornered the whole evening. So it's been amazing.
It's like a college-based party last night.
It was basically, yeah. There was a ping pong table and
was there red little beer cups everywhere?
Yeah, little red beer cups. Yeah. I had one drink. I was thinking I'll go and relax this evening, have a few drinks, and it didn't work out like that. I ended up just having one. I was nursing for about 3 hours whilst I was backed into a corner, chatting to people about all sorts.
Amazing. So you and have you got a background with Guy at all? You and Guy known each other for a while?
I wouldn't say. I mean, only since I've seen Athena launch. I mean, we've got some big markets on Euler at times, and I'm friendly with him, but we don't go way back or anything. No.
Interesting. Guy has only amazing things to say about you.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he says really lovely things about you guys, actually.
Yeah, he's talked about us on a few podcasts before and stuff. I think he's like a fan of the project, I think it seems so, but it's mutual. I think what they've done is absolutely incredible. Like, it's so well executed, and Guy's super smart as well. So mutual admiration there.
He's definitely a smart guy. Obviously you're UK based. What's it been like building in the UK?
Good question. I think we started building it in 2020, and at that point it felt like a good place to be. There was, London's just a great place. It's a home of finance, and launching a startup here, I think was quite good. I was at Oxford at the time, and there was like lots of hackathons, and you get a lot of support, I think, from people in the UK. That being said, it's probably not the best place to be right now. I'd say the best place to be is probably the US, right? In New York is. It seems to be on fire at the moment, like really taking off. But I really hope that London can become a home of top crypto projects like us over the coming few years.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I think we've got a good shot. I think if the politicians here realise the scale of the opportunity before them, then we can really invest in this industry and make something huge here. Make London great again. I think that's, but it needs some political will. It needs people to move faster and be, proactive in fostering the markets, I think.
Yeah, I think that is a problem actually, because really you only see the politicians you see sort of leaning into crypto are politicians that know how important the sort of like tech vote is really, because crypto is just a tech vote, isn't it, for the most part?
Yep.
And I think this weekend, obviously, you've got like a big conference in London, it's called the Digital Asset Summit, and there's only one politician there, right?
Yeah.
One politician there. That guy is Nigel Farage, and he just to some extent understands that this portion of the vote is really important.
Yeah.
And he's leaning into that. Do you think the incumbents will see their misplacement for not actually seeing the opportunity in this space?
I think they should. I mean, I've been at events in Parliament. I've done stuff with Coinbase here to try and promote the industry in the UK, and there is cross-party support for the industry, I would say. But certainly, Farage is way more on top of this than others, and I think that he will do well as a result of that. Honestly, there's Rishi Sunak, famously was very proactive in supporting industry, and I don't think he really had that much support at the time. There's just people around him maybe didn't realise the scale of the opportunity. But I think in the Conservatives seem like they're maybe more on top of this than Labour at the moment. That's the impression I get. But I'll be writing to my local Labour MP and being say you need to get your act together and support this. We've sort of been sleeping on AI a little bit in this country as well. I went to Oxford and we had some of the top researchers in AI came out of this country from Oxford, Cambridge, places in London. But we don't have the biggest AI startups in the UK, sadly. They're all in San Francisco, all in the US. And I think, broadly politicians need to wake up and support this industry, support the tech industry, because otherwise we're just going to lose it to the US.
Do you think there's a chance that this can actually be rectified, or is the reason that the best minds in those fields, they're going to places like San Francisco because just the general economy over in the US is so much not only is it massive, it's just been so much better than the UK over the last 20, 25 years. The UK really, on a global on if you look at the FTSE, for example, it's hardly really recovered from the GFC.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's really surprising. I think they just do a lot of things well in the US in terms of, maybe not so under Gensler, but they are very tech friendly and regulation light generally, and I think that's served them well. In 2008, obviously the crash happened, and we perhaps got a little bit overzealous about regulation, and people across a broad range of industries in the UK and in Europe complain that regulation kind of holds them back. I think the US is just seems like a friendlier place at times to build tech companies, but people in the UK are aware of the opportunity that they're missing out on at this point. This low growth economy that we're in is scaring people, and we can see that politicians are waking up to that now. So I expect there will be changes, whether those changes are brought in by the current Labour government or some future government. Maybe Farage will get in. Who knows? I think we will see change just because we have to, because we can't just keep growing with this low growth economy. People are will leave. There'll be a brain drain ultimately. So yeah.
I mean, we have seen that. There's the biggest outflow of millionaires from the UK.
Yep, famously.
Yeah. So. Definitely agree. Gravity is an on-chain trading protocol built with zero-knowledge tech and part of zkSync's Elastic network. It feels like a centralized exchange, fast and smooth, but everything happens fully on-chain and privately. I'm using it right now because they've got an ongoing points campaign for active traders. Gravity may not be available in all regions, including the UK. Thanks to Gravity for supporting the channel. Let's go back a little bit. You said you started building Euler in 2020.
Yep.
What's your initial background? I know you have a pretty super interesting background.
Nerdy background, yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit and how that sort of shaped your path into crypto?
Yeah, so I used to be an evolutionary game theorist. So I used to work I was a research scientist, worked at a range of universities in the UK. So what is that job? It's essentially using maths and computer science to model biological systems and populations and how they change through time. Especially when you're thinking about when there's maybe two different kind of entities in a population that are playing different strategies. So, when you've got a population of healthy cells and then a cancerous cell emerges, they're competing, right? And then the healthy cells are to a degree cooperating. And so, it might sound strange, but you can kind of model that out using this branch of maths called game theory. And that was my day-to-day job before crypto.
So, game theory is super interesting. Can you give a 360-degree version of game theory from almost like a sort of level one almost?
Level 1, there's something called the Prisoner's Dilemma, which is a game that people, one of the first games that people studied, and it's this game where you're trying to figure out whether or not you should cooperate or compete. And the interesting thing about the game is that it usually, even though the best strategy, as it turns out in the game, for the collective is to cooperate. So imagine you've been arrested for some crime, and you get the option whether or not to confess, or you can confess and implicate the other person that you've committed the crime with, or whether to basically just not speak at all. Now, the best strategy is if you and your partner in separate rooms, you cooperate by basically refusing to speak. But of course, there's the option there to speak up and put your partner in trouble and sort of implicate them. So it turns out in this strategy that it's one of these games that's like, played in real life with real prisoners and so on. And even the best strategy is always to just not speak up. People get so scared that if they do speak up, if they don't speak up, their partner does, the partner will go free and they'll end up spending time in jail or whatever. So in the end, defection is the best strategy, and both prisoners will end up talking and implicating each other in the crime. So it's a failure of cooperation. Basically, it's a game that gets studied, but there's a question about how can you make cooperation work in the long run? And it turns out there's lots of different mechanisms and complicated scenarios in which you can actually make cooperation pay rather than defection pay. But that was a very sort of hand-wavy explanation of the prisoner's dilemma.
The prisoner's dilemma is very famous. So
yeah.
Are there any, it seems like that's much more applicable to anything financial really, right? Is there anything in evolutionary game theory that you can apply to crypto today, to DeFi, or even maybe to building Euler in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's maybe they're not individual instances of like particular games, but just the broad principles of populations of things that are kind of competing, very competitive, efficient systems. A lot of the skills and training that you develop in that field are very, very applicable to the day job. You're constantly, I guess, when you're building financial applications, worrying about competitive elements, like can people manipulate the system, for instance, as a way for people to win in a ways that they shouldn't do, right? So you're constantly thinking about the best strategy, like developing tools to think about strategic elements in a game, and what strategy should people play to win. So for instance, you think about stablecoins and the development of those, like or something like Athena. It's quite a complex financial system. Are there ways to win in that system, and by playing certain strategies that enable people to make money in ways that they perhaps shouldn't? How can they manipulate the system? You're constantly thinking in those terms of competition and what's the best strategy to play in the system. And I think it's very analytical. You really have to boil systems down, abstract them away, and think about the core fundamentals, and then piece them back together and think about, if this happens, then this, then this, then this. And so you're not just thinking about the first order effects of a certain behavior playing out, but then how does that impact the other players in the game? Like if they do this, then they're going to react this way, which in turn means that this is going to happen. So game theory is very much not just first order effects. It's like what happens when you loop the implications of those effects back on one another in this persistent manner. So I think that way of thinking about the world is extremely useful for in crypto, because that's ultimately what we're building. Is these complex financial systems where we don't want people to win by playing strange strategies.
That decision tree of thinking about the first order effects, the second order effects, the tertiary effects from there. There's so many. Every new step you take, obviously the amount of new decisions that can span off of that are essentially exponential, right? So the amount of new unknown unknowns gets bigger and bigger every time you go down that decision tree. At what point do you just say, do you know what, I've done all I can.
Yep.
This has just got to go out now. And then the open nature of this product has to just be battle tested.
There is still, even with that complexity, there's still ways that you can constrain the complexity and constrain the range of outcomes. So there's, when we're building these products, there's something we think of called an invariant in the system, which is essentially a rule that should never be violated, regardless of how, all these first, second, third order, effects, that certain rules should just never be violated. So in the context of a lending and borrowing protocol, for example, all the borrowers have to be what's called over-collateralized. They have to have more value in their collateral than they have in the debt that they're building up. And so that's like a key invariant that should never be broken, and you can kind of bake that into the code in the protocol. Now, with that invariant in place, that you can allow people to do all sorts of crazy stuff in the intermediate steps now, because you know that even if they deposit, borrow, swap, loop, unloop, they can do a whole range of different actions, 20, 30 actions, but as long as that key invariant's not broken, then the system as a whole will remain solvent, and that's what you want, right? So you whilst thinking about all those first, second order, third order effects is really important, I think, to help build secure systems. Even when the complexity kind of blows up, there's still ways to constrain it and kind of box it in. And that's designing those key invariants is really important and a big part of our role as mechanism designers for protocols.
So how would you explain Euler Tumor?
Euler connects lenders and borrowers of digital currencies. So lenders earn interest by depositing their assets, and borrowers borrow from those lenders and pay them an interest rate, in its simplest terms.
Mm-hmm. And what is it about Euler that made you guys so desperate to build this product when there were other, borrow lend products that were available, like Aave and Compound in 2020? Mm-hmm. The concept of like creating platforms to borrow and lend on wasn't new. What made you so determined to build this back then?
So the original motivation was quite different to the motivation, I would say, for now. So I'll tell you about the starting point for us and then how we've evolved that product over time. In 2020, we were motivated to allow people to lend and borrow almost any asset. At the time, in the early days of DeFi, you could only borrow a handful of assets. Crypto majors like ETH and Bitcoin. And we wanted to know, well, why can't we extend that to all assets? There are many altcoins out there that people want to earn yield on and that other people may want to borrow. And the key challenge that we had there was how you set interest rates. How do you know what the cost of borrowing should be? There were some models out there at the time that were fairly simple in nature, I think, and they needed constant interaction from the protocol operators basically to set these things. So it was less decentralized. So one of our motivations was to develop an interest rate model that didn't need an operator, basically, that could adapt itself to the system. And so we used a branch of maths called control theory. So going back to the day job, what was relevant, use control theory, which is a branch of maths that influences things like how you set the temperature in the room right now. There's a thermostat and it's constantly measuring whether it's too hot, too cold, and then it adjusts the amount of energy being pumped into the system. You can do the same with interest rates, it turns out. We're using the same sort of maths to control interest rates. And that was one of our big motivations, was if we can fix this interest rate problem and we don't need operators constantly adjusting these things, then we can potentially open up lending and borrowing for all assets, hundreds of assets, all operating completely autonomously. I think after launching that protocol, we realized that the main motivation for users, though, wasn't to lend and borrow this big long tail of assets. Turns out that didn't have huge product market fit, truthfully. But what we did learn from that when we were speaking to people who were using the protocol was that they had lots of varied wants and needs. They had very different risk tolerances and so on. For just if you even focus on the crypto majors or stablecoins, there's a huge diversity of different lending and borrowing needs out there, and you can't really capture those in a singular protocol. Aave obviously is doing exceptionally well, very, very popular, but it only caters to a certain type of use case, and there are many other use cases out there. So what we did with Euler V2 was try to abstract the properties of lending protocols into modules, basically, and we allow people, then other builders, to come in and repackage those models to build modules to build their own products. And so you have, on Euler today, we don't just have one product. I wouldn't say there's just many different products. Yeah. It's a tool, more of a toolkit for building credit markets. So you could come and design your own bespoke credit market for a set of users that you have in mind, and maybe it's catered to people quite high up on the risk reward spectrum, people looking for really high interest rates, but tolerant of a bit more risk. Whereas I might go and build another market which is much simpler, far more conservative, really catering to people with low tolerance for risk, but therefore offering lower rates and things. So yeah, it's a toolkit today.
And on that journey to like V2, can you just go through, like, just real briefly? I know it's a super crazy subject.
Yeah.
What happened at the end of V1, and more than anything, really, this is what I think is this is especially what Guy has said multiple times.
Yeah.
And about why he so kind of like believes in Euler and you guys so much, is because I think you are the only team really to have ever recovered from a hack in that way.
Yeah.
And have the protocol survive over, the long term, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until the start of this year that Euler started to really start picking up again.
Yeah.
You guys went from roughly 250 million TVL down to 10 at that time. And then suddenly, like this year, I mean, you're again one of the biggest borrow lending markets in the space. So I really want to know sort of like, A, what happened at the time, B, what it was like going through that, and C, how you managed to recover and build trust and just keep going despite how hard that must have been at the time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a long story, very long story. So probably too long for this interview. But I wrote a blog about it. In fact, a big blog post explaining it all, called Euler War and Peace, that explains ultimately what happened. But I'll give you the short version of it. But it's very crazy time. So we were doing extremely well. I think second or third largest lending protocol at the time, and it was the exploit happened 4 days after the birth of my son, so which is really unfortunate timing. He was born on the Thursday night around midnight, and woke up on Friday expecting to spend some time with him, and then in the US there was a big banking crisis, and so USDC depegged during that time. I don't know if you remember that big crazy moment. So there's a lot of drama over that weekend. I said to my wife, I'm really sorry, but this could really impact Euler, so I'm going to have to spend some time on this. Monday morning came and everything seemed fine again. The banking crisis had been resolved. USDC was repegging. Everything looked good. So I was looking forward to some time having paternity leave and hanging out with him. And pager duty alarm started going off, and I thought, oh no, something's happened again. 9 a.m. My mum had just come round to take my daughter away to look after her for the day and everything. I thought, this is going to be something about USDC again. And I came upstairs, and just the most awful feeling when I saw that we just had a flood of messages saying, Euler's being drained. It's, it was, I really, just my heart absolutely sank. It was no feeling I would wish on my worst enemy. Awful feeling. And then, the short story is we recovered all the funds. So we, over a course of 3 weeks, we managed to track down the exploiter, make contact with him, and then I spent a lot of time negotiating with him the return of all these funds. So 197 million was the stolen amount, but we recovered all of it and more. In fact, strangely, people find this quite bizarre, but when people exploit protocols, they'll often convert the assets like USDC, which can be frozen, into other assets. So he converted them into ETH. ETH rallied in the intervening period. So 197 million was stolen, 240 million was returned. So the users actually ended up making a return on the dollar value of the assets that was taken.
During that time, I know you were heavily praised, really, for being so open about what was going on and just speaking, whether it was in Discord or on Twitter, just saying, look, this is what's going on, this is what's happened, and this is our plan. Why were you so honest in that situation?
It's the only way to be, isn't it? I mean, you want to live an honest life. I mean, I think we wanted to be. We were radically transparent about things, and that's why I wrote this blog post, because I think it helps. It helped the users understand. Obviously, they want to. You can't reveal everything during the middle of a negotiation. You need to be really careful the words that you choose and everything, because you don't want to spoil the negotiation, basically. But to the extent you can provide information, the users need it. So you want to do it for the users. You want to do it for yourself, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're misleading people and letting people down, and potentially getting yourself in trouble. And it helps today, honestly, to talk about it. It's quite cathartic to just be very open about these things. We've been able to say more and more about what happened over time. Obviously, in the weeks and months that followed the exploit, it was a very, very difficult time, like having to return the funds and speak to lawyers and all the rest of it. But today it's thankfully in the past. I mean, we explained a lot about what went wrong as well. Obviously, Euler v1 was perhaps the most heavily audited lending protocol at the time. We had the largest bug bounty at the time. We were one of the first protocols to use 𝗬𝗘, who do formal verification, which is a very more advanced sort of auditing tool that's become more and more common over time. So we were well known before the exploit as a team that took security really seriously. We weren't rushing the product out. We took our time and everything. The way it actually came about was extremely unfortunate. We had a much smaller bug bounty come in from somebody who submitted and found a bug elsewhere in the code 9 months prior to the attack. So when the bug bounty came in, we spoke to our security partners and said, "Hey, what do you think about this? They've reported this bug." We all agreed that it was a bug and that it probably should be fixed. It was not a bug that would have led to the draining of the protocol. It was much, much smaller. It was, maybe in some rare circumstances, some user might have lost some money, which is why we decided to fix it. So we developed the fix, we had it re-audited, and the shame about this audit was that I think it was done in the context of this bug rather than looking at the holistic protocol code. Like when you first develop a protocol, your auditors go top to bottom, all round. They go through the whole thing. I think in hindsight, what happened is when we developed the fix and when they audited it, we were thinking more just about this particular bug that had been reported. And it turns out the fix that we made for that introduced a much, much more serious bug. And so that was the circumstance. That's how it happened. And I think that, explaining that to people is important, because I think it helps people realize this wasn't something, this wasn't careless. It wasn't because we rushed out the code. We were well known amongst the security community of people that took this stuff really, really seriously, and were trying the absolute best. But it's a tough industry to build in, and it was very, very just really unfortunate. But we wanted to make that clear to people that that's what happened. That's why I explained that all in the blog post as well in a bit more detail.
That's a brilliant explanation. I think building in crypto is one of those. It probably is one of the most cutthroat industries you can possibly build in, because it's a purely financialized system with every single player should be, via game theory, deploying the most cutthroat strategies. For the most part, because that is what allows the system to develop and actually find the best path to success. But that actually means that the people who end up going to build those systems, that they need to be battle tested in real time. And what that means is, well, obviously things go wrong. I think people often forget protocols are launched. Maybe they've got funds in a wallet and they just go and use the protocol because it's a new protocol and it's like got a good team behind it or whatever. Once these things go live, there's always smart contract risk. Smart contract risk never goes. You can send funds to the wrong wallet, yes, but you can do silly little user errors. But smart contract risk, every single time you take money, you take your funds and you connect to a new site, there's risk there. And those, just for general users, I think people often forget the immense risks of just existing in crypto, because there's no rollback function.
There is no rollback function. One thing I would say is that risk, the good thing about crypto economic systems, though, is that they become more robust over time. That's for two reasons. They develop something called Lindy, which is once a protocol holds a significant amount of funds, and those funds are there for somebody to try to take, you know that there's people out there trying to take them all the time. And so maybe 1 week after launch, you know, they've tried and they've not figured it out yet. But yeah, after a month, you know, they're still trying. After a year, they're still trying. At some point, you realize that it's just not possible. I think many protocols have got to that stage now. There's Uniswap v2 now, which has been around for many years, holds billions and billions of dollars of assets, and no one's taken them. That's a really good sign that code is robust and that there isn't an exploit lurking in there somewhere.
Same thing true for 𝗏𝗡𝗍, maybe, you know, basically got 34th biggest bank in the US now.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you know, 𝗏𝗡𝗍 v3 has had multiple code issues over the time, but they've been corrected, and today it appears to be very robust. Right, I'm never going to say never, but you know, as I say, it certainly has that very strong Lindy effect. You know, $75 billion at risk and no exploit. It's probably, I really hope that, you know, it's at this point you can kind of say it's probably fine. The other thing that happens in this industry is something we used to study going back to game theory, and you know, my past was there's this ruthless kind of pruning through sort of natural selection where protocols that have weaknesses get exploited. It's you know, it's a very unfortunate thing that happens, but what's left are the protocols that can't be exploited. And so you end up, over time, through a very ruthless, painful process of elimination, you end up having a system which is anti-fragile. And that's kind of unique to crypto. In a lot of industries, the security comes from obscurity. You know, you don't know what the code looks like. You don't know. People can't see the code and everything. We're building an industry where the code is public. Everybody can come in and see. You can go and take a look right now at our code and try and break it, right? And that's not true for a bank or many of the apps on your phone, for instance. You would have no way of knowing. And so it's mostly obscurity that's protecting those things. They're not necessarily anti-fragile like crypto protocols are.
Do you think that process is going to be part of the reason why the world ends up moving to a more decentralized manner? Like, so are we going to continue to see DEX volumes against SEX volumes increase? Are we at like a maxed out point at this point?
No. I mean, there's huge growth potential here. I mean, it's part of the process. It's part of the reason why people will use protocols. I think the biggest reason why people will use them is because they're more efficient, they're more transparent, they're more open, composable. I think they're the key benefits. So they're the real reasons why users want to use them. I'd say the security element is something that's potentially holds people back. And so as the industry has matured and we have protocols with an immense amount of Lindy now, like the Uniswap v2s of the world, that gives people much more confidence. Institutions a lot more confidence to use these protocols, I would say. So that's an important part of the process, but it's not the reason they get used. The main reason people like things in crypto is just that they work better than legacy financial systems.
The biggest risk to your crypto isn't just your wallet. Your connection is also massively important. Browsing without a VPN leaves what you do exposed to anybody watching the network, especially on public or weak home Wi-Fi. NordVPN encrypts your connection so traffic stays private and your data cannot be read even if it's intercepted. At around 9 cents a day, it's about the cheapest layer of protection you can add. You can get 74% off a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months free, backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can go to nordvpn.com/Alessandro to claim this. That's nordvpn.com/Alessandro. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this part of the video.
So you guys in the transition from V1 to V2, obviously V1 happened. You were sitting at like $10 million in TVL in total, and then really it was since November of last year, I think that things really started to turn around. And now Euler's sitting with more than $2 billion in TVL. A lot of that's from usual, actually, I think. Like a lot of it. So interesting to know the sort of partnerships there. But what was the thing that really started to change in November last year?
We found product market fit. I think that's what happened. I mean, we launched in September and the first 2 months were rough. I'm not going to lie. It was, you know, you spend over a year building this thing, and you pour your life into it, and many months. It's I think it's probably the most audited protocol in DeFi today.
So you've got one kid. Have you still?
Say again?
You got one child or
two?
Two now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You had a baby in that time as well?
No. So my daughter was born just 2 months after COVID started. So I like to have children in chaotic environments. It seems I'm not having a third. But no, we poured our life into it, and then when we first launched, I think it takes time for that confidence to grow in the protocol. But what happened was, we built something for other builders to come and build, and initially there was no one really doing that. We tried to encourage people, but people are busy. It takes time to get stuff done. So I think our strategy there was, we thought, well, why don't we deploy a market and showcase why this technology is cool and why it's better than other technology for the kind of things people are looking to do right now. And once we'd done that, we started to get a lot of inbound requests at that point. So people say, "Oh, can it do this? If I wanted to build a lending market to do X, Y, Z, could we do that on Euler?" And almost always the answer was, "Oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you just have to use the toolkit in a slightly different way, and you can create more of a hybrid permissionless market, or whatever it is you want to achieve."
Yeah, what are some examples of the ones that you're being requested for initially?
So I'd say that hybrid permissionless model has been something that's been quite popular. So we have
and how does that look in reality?
So for example, we have BlackRock's 𝗬𝗏𝗏 tokenized money market fund is an asset that only whitelisted entities can access. So people can hold it. Not everybody can trade it. It's a regulated asset, but it can be used as collateral to borrow dollars, for example. But those dollars, they don't need to be permissioned, right? Anybody can hold and trade USDC. And so we have a market on Avalanche, for instance, where regulated entities can come and deposit collateral in a permissioned manner, but borrow from a permissionless pool of USDC. And it's quite nice. You're connecting a broader pool of maybe retail users who are able to now earn extra yield on the USDC with institutions who hold these tokenized real world assets, and they at times need to access liquidity and borrow against them, and so they're now borrowing from these markets. So that's one really nice example of just something a really small credit market just does one thing and does it really, really well. But there are other examples of markets where people have we have cross collateral markets, so where you connect a whole bunch of different stable coins to one another and allow you to deposit one stable coin, borrow another stable coin. You might think, well, why should I do that? Why would anybody do that? It's because they're trading rates. So different stable coins, different assets have different interest rates intrinsic to them that depend on how the asset is constructed, the prevailing interest rates in the market and everything. And people can kind of trade rates, and they can go leverage long on certain rates. And that's been one of the most popular use cases, I would say, for Euler, is to build a lot of different credit markets that are built around stable coins and trading rates.
So you say that first 2 months of VT was super hard. I guess you had 2 kids under 6.
Yeah.
Whilst you were just deployed essentially what was a brand new version of Euler.
Yeah.
And you were going out and trying to get people to use this market. What was like the day-to-day during that period?
Lots of calls, really, just trying to speak to other people in the industry and tell them about how Euler worked, and explanatory calls about the technology, really, and just telling people, here's the kind of cool stuff you could do with it that you can't do elsewhere.
And who was the first major client, I guess, that you convinced to deploy?
There's a fund in London called RE7, and I'd known them for quite a while. I think they were one of the first to use to really commit to using the protocol. But there was also K3 and MEV Capital, and then we've got loads now. We call the entities that create these markets risk curators. The reason they're called risk curators is that they are when you build these markets, they come with risk parameters usually. You can set different interest rates. You can set caps on how much assets you can deposit or borrow. You can you can change the hooks, which influence the allow lists in the markets and so on. So these guys are coming in, building bespoke credit markets for different asset types, and then changing the risk parameters to influence the risks. So some of them are more risk on, some of them are more risk off. But yeah, it was all about finding risk curators to come in and build these markets.
Just on risk then, what do you think the biggest risk you've ever taken is?
The biggest risk I've ever taken? Oh, wow. I mean, so when I was a kid, or when I was really young, I went traveling, and I got on went on some buses that were just, just ridiculous. Like, we went traveling across Laos at one point, and there was a guy driving the bus that was drunk, like really hammered. And we were just going across this crazy terrain, and then, talk about landmines and stuff. I was thinking, this seems like probably a bad idea. That was pretty risky.
And from a financial perspective?
I said before the call, I got liquidated once trading Matic, which is, who needs to trade Matic on leverage, right? It's already quite a volatile asset. That was probably a pretty bad one.
How much leverage?
I don't know, maybe 5x.
Not even.
No. It was on margin trading, so it's not like perps. I've never been a big user of perps. I don't really trade an awful lot. If I've ever traded, I try to use Euler today. So you can use Euler to go long and short assets as well. So you can deposit, say, ETH, borrow USD, and then the USD is used to acquire more ETH, which in turn can be recollateralized, borrow more. So it's kind of these leverage loops can be built up, so you can get more exposure to the upside on ETH. But of course, no free lunch. If you get more exposure to the upside on ETH, you're also getting more exposures to the downside as well. So if I ever do any trading, I try to use Euler. I tell all of our team we should all try to use Euler for stuff, so that we figure out where its strengths and weaknesses lie.
Do you ever see yourself producing any borrow-lend markets that are based upon perpetuals markets? So maybe you could have perpetual, like you could plug into Hyperliquid, for example, and you've got collateral on there that is people are trading with, and then they could borrow against that collateral in some way. Is that something that could even be built?
It definitely could be built. Should it be built? is always a good question. We actually have some quite big plans for going on Hyper EVM soon, which we will announce. I can't say too much now. We're still a little bit early, but Euler will be on Hyper EVM soon, and I imagine that there will be some nice ways to compose Euler with the broader Hyperliquid ecosystem. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
ZK Sync connects Ethereum's ecosystem through its new Elastic chain, linking multiple rollups into one system so apps, users, and liquidity can move freely while keeping Ethereum-level security. It's powered by zero-knowledge proofs and includes a privacy layer that lets developers protect user data, all while staying compliant. ZK Sync is scaling Ethereum into a connected private network. Thanks to ZK Sync for supporting this channel.
So, right now, what are Euler's, I guess, your biggest plans from here? And how do you see that as accruing value, I guess, back to Euler, the token itself?
Yeah. So, continued growth. We're here at DAS, and we're just absolutely swamped with people wanting to build new stuff on Euler. We need to grow the team because we're overwhelmed with opportunity right now.
How big is the team now?
It's 24 people. Yeah. So we're not huge by any stretch, and we're a very strong technical team, and we help. We're very proactive at helping the builders and everything. So it's hard. We need to grow the team to continue doing the bread and butter side of the business. There's huge opportunities for growth with real world assets and bringing on board more institutions onto Euler. So we're in lots of conversations about doing that, letting people borrow against real world assets.
What kind of assets are we talking about there?
So a lot of
stable coins, more private credit markets.
Yeah, both of those. There are new stable coins launching all the time, of all sorts of different flavors and varieties. Private credit is going to be huge. I think it's just much more efficient to trade in private credit on chain, I think. And so fundamentally, just lending protocols have great product market fit for assets like that. There are huge challenges there as well. So the industry has to figure out how to manage the risks of those things. When you're collateralizing private credit, if you ever want to unwind a position, you need to make sure that you can liquidate and unwind positions. I think that's something that's that the industry's working on, figuring out how that's going to work. But there's enormous demand for private credit to come on chain.
How far is the infrastructure right now from being able to handle that demand?
I think we're already there. I think we already have solutions. They're not battle tested yet, so it's about bringing institutions move quite slowly, and you have to kind of walk them in quite slowly and build test cases and things. So we're working on that. We're working on some pilot schemes with folks for in that area. Looking at building markets with additional features like security and compliance features that institutions want as well. We've got an integration at the moment with that people are really liking, which allows you to use a zero knowledge proof of your identity to show that you're a regulated entity. That allows you to access one of these semi-permissioned, permissionless markets that I mentioned before.
That's cool. That's already live.
They're already live today, yeah. So people, you can bring your, let's say what in practice what people are doing is they're KYBing with somebody like Binance, so an exchange that's already handling all that, and then you can create a zero knowledge proof of that KYB then to show that you're an eligible, regulated entity or whatever, to be able to access this market. And then what's nice about that is that all the operations are still public. Everyone can still see that a trade has been put on, but they can't see that you've put the trade on. So it gives you a level of privacy while still making sure that all the benefits of transparency that we have in DeFi, one of the big advantages of DeFi is that it is transparent and it's not opaque like TradFi often is. So yeah, you get the benefits of both worlds with something like that.
Yeah, those zero knowledge proofs of actually the extrapolation of that technology just into the everyday world is super interesting to see how it's actually going to be applied, because when you go and show someone your ID, like they have no right of knowing where you live, actual age. You just need to prove that you're over 18 because I want to buy a bottle of wine.
Exactly.
No need to know the information.
That's it. But you got to show your whole date of birth, your where you're from, often all this extra stuff that they just have no real need to know. It's crazy. So yeah, I'm very bullish on zero knowledge proof. I think it's a great technology, and I think I will see it roll out a lot. All this the ID card conversation in the UK right now as well. It'd be great if you could just bring zero knowledge proofs to the party and not have to put everything, all your information into a big database for people to go and hack and onto a card that people can steal from you.
It seems crazy if the digital ID cards are launched in the UK, if it's at any point soon, and they're not done in some zero knowledge way. I mean, the tech is literally there to do these things completely safely.
Totally.
If these things are not meshed together in some way, even if these things are launched, it just shows how far behind, I guess, and how far behind the actual curve of information and technology they are at the moment.
Yeah, big time. It's always this case with governments, and always 10 years behind the curve.
This has been an amazing conversation. Is there anything you wanted to speak about at all that we haven't gone through so far?
I guess I'd like to maybe tease out something new that's we're probably shipping soon, which is we've got new products. We're always innovating on Euler and trying to create new products to solve problems in the market. I think we have some of the trades we've talked about, these kind of looping trades and everything. People all the rates in DeFi today are variable, and those looping trades, it makes those looping trades sometimes difficult. Borrowers often face challenges where the rates will move against them, and then they will end up basically borrowing and losing money. And so there's huge demand out there for fixed rates right now. I would say that just didn't exist a few years ago before all these tokenized real world assets came on chain and everything. So we've been working on some fixed rate products. We've been working on that in the context of building our own stablecoin. And we're extremely well placed to do that. We haven't touched on some of the other really cool features on Euler, like the DEX that's embedded into the system. So we have an exchange that connects very tightly with the lending market. It's called credit-based market making. I think somebody coined that recently. With Euler, we'll have our credit markets, we'll have our stablecoin, and we'll have our DEX. And that holy trinity, I think, is an extremely powerful combination. The reason that's going to be so important for Euler is that allows us to basically build a closed system where there's no value leakage. If you launch a stablecoin today, you often have to go and figure out how to bootstrap liquidity. So you have to pay liquidity providers and protocol fees to other DEXs. You have to figure out how to bootstrap it on the credit market. So you're paying the credit market and figuring out all that side of things. So it's very, very costly to launch a stablecoin. And one of the things we do a lot with these curators is basically help people bring these things to market. It's what Euler's very, very good at. And part of the reason we've scaled so quickly to 4 billion in total deposits is just we're very good at enabling people to spin up both the credit and the DEX side of things. But with our own stablecoin, we can now basically connect that, create a closed loop, all the value accrual from that system. We're not paying anybody else to create it. It can all go back to EUL our token holder, for our token holders.
Could you go a bit more into the stablecoin? So what's going to collateralize that and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we're working. There's still a little bit of work to do on it, but we're looking at a partnership with another issuer, but it'll be a hybrid model, ideally, where there's some off-chain collateral backing the stablecoin. So yeah, thinking T-bills, really high quality off-chain collateral. But then on chain there'll be crypto. It'll be crypto-backed, so there'll be assets like Bitcoin, ETH, maybe some PT tokens, Pendle tokens, allowing people to then loop in against a fixed rate rather than a variable rate.
And so you guys will be capturing the yield off-chain, and the users will be capturing the yield on-chain sort of thing?
All the yield will flow back to the users. It'll be a multi-chain system, but there'll be we expect the main hub of the system, the main yield generating part will reside on Ethereum, which is our home. And all that yield will flow back from all the different lending borrowing systems on different chains. I think we're on 12 plus chains at the moment. So they all flow back to Ethereum, the main hub there. So that's where people will be able to earn the yield, but they'll be able to borrow and trade the asset across a multitude of chains.
And in terms of the DEX, does the DEX take any? Is it like a Uniswap V2 clone fork? Or does it take some extra sort of like models from Fluid potentially? Like how did you model that DEX?
Oh, it's its own thing. There's nothing quite like it in DeFi. It's not it's not UniV2 and it's not Fluid, although it's probably most similar to Fluid out of anything. Yeah, so it has the same principle that the Fluid has, which is that sometimes debt can be used as liquidity in a DEX. I'll give you an example of a feature that we have that no one else has out there right now. It's called just-in-time liquidity. So supposing that you wanted to do a really chunky swap of USDC to USDT, let's say 10 million, right? If you were to do that on Uniswap today, that you would need to have that amount of liquidity in the pool, right? It would have to reside there. The LPs would have to have it, and you'd swap in, and you would change the balance of the LP, but you get, put USDC in and get 10 million USDT out. On Euler, what happens is something quite different. When you swap in, the asset that you're swapping in goes into the LP's account. It then gets collateralized, and then it is used to borrow the output amount just in time. It's called just-in-time liquidity. And why is that important? It means that the original LP, they don't have to have the liquidity in their account. All they need is a little bit of margin to satisfy the margin requirements of the lending protocol. So I can LP. We had one of our junior devs created a market where they put in $500 worth of liquidity, and they ended up trading in a week $500,000 worth of volume on the $500 worth of liquidity. And that's because with that just $500, they were essentially able to facilitate trades that were about 40 times the size of that initial LP amount, because every time a swap was coming in, the swap amount, the input amount was collateralized. It was used to borrow the swap output amount. And so you can do 20, 30, 40x more volume on your liquidity than you can do on a traditional exchange. There's no free lunch in some sense. Like you sometimes have to pay borrowing costs to satisfy the liquidity, but then in some cases you're actually earning yield as well because you're lending the assets at the same time. So
is that facilitated through flash loans inside that block?
Kind of, yeah. So Yeah, it's again, I think we touched on invariance right at the start, right? It's as long as one of those cool use cases where as long as the invariant holds at the end of the trade, so something quite complex is happening here, but as long as the LP that's satisfying this trade, is basically healthy and over collateralized after it, then essentially what's happening is it's that we allow the swappers to come in and rebalance someone's account on their behalf. That's the simplest way to think about it, is that you're giving temporary permission for somebody to just come in and totally rebalance your account for you. And the LPs do it because they make money, right? They earn a swap fee. They earn a much bigger swap fee than they could possibly earn on Uniswap, because it's the notional size of the trade is much bigger than their principal. So for them it's a good thing to let somebody else just come in and rebalance your account and earn swap fees for it.
In the case of your junior dev creating this pool, what was the actual APY that he was earning on that phone?
Oh, it was absolutely insane. I mean, it was like
was it
100% plus. Yeah, it was just crazy. Now that's an unusual case. I think it was for an asset that was fairly new and all the rest of it. So like it's quite a sophisticated tool. You need to be really careful with it. I wouldn't say it's something that I would encourage lots of retail users to like ape into. But if you know what you're doing, if you manage the risks well, you can do really well on this. We actually have a pool for Euler token versus ETH on Euler Swap, and it uses this just-in-time liquidity function, and it's generated 60% APR over the past 2 months. So it's done very, very well. And the other nice thing about Euler Swap is that not only do you have this like extra borrowing capacity to be able to do these big trades, but even when you're not using that, if you just LP on Euler Swap, even if you just do a fairly vanilla type pool, the assets can go into the lending pool by themselves first and foremost, and that earns them base lending yield. So even if you facilitate 0 swaps, the worst case scenario is you're going to be earning the lending yield first. And then basically the liquidity to satisfy the swaps is only coming out and being used to do swaps just in time as well, right? So, in principle, LPing on Euler Swap should be much more capital efficient. On something like Uniswap, if you think there's no trade on the given block, let's just idle liquidity, idle capital that's earning no yield, and it's a very inefficient use of capital. On Euler, we kind of flip it on its head. Start with lending, and then you build the DEX on top of the lending to make sure the entire system's as capital efficient as it can be.
Yeah, I think we are seeing that, just much better uses of capital, much more efficient ways. Yeah. As these new protocols come out and just see, okay, all this capital sitting idle, not earning any yield, how can we improve on it? And we're just seeing all of these new generation sort of like protocols like Euler, like Fluid, for example, are able to just utilize capital so much more efficiently. Yeah, it's just in time thing. I'm going to have to look into it. So
you should. Cool. Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it works very nicely for real world assets, by the way. Imagine we talked about that BUIDL example before. Imagine you want to access liquidity against BUIDL, but there's no LP pools for BUIDL on Uniswap, because how do you do, even it's like a hybrid thing. How do you create a LP pool? You can't. So normally when people want to exit BUIDL, they have to use the instant redemption facility or go through an OTC desk or whatever else. In this case, in principle, what you can do is swap in your BUIDL. It's going to go to the LP who's effectively also on the allow list for BUIDL, and then they're going to borrow from the permissionless pool and send that out. So now you can use this hybrid permissionless pool as a DEX as well as a lending and credit market. Yeah,
so cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. That was absolutely amazing. Could you tell people where they can find a bit more about you, please?
Yes, Euler.finance is. We didn't even get to the name, but it's EULER.finance is our website. You can follow me Euler_MAB on Twitter. That's my initials, by the way, that last bit. Come and chat to us. Like if there's something you want to do, especially if you're a builder in the space, there's so many different types of things you can build on Euler, from cool new DEX things, build your own stablecoin, build your own credit market. Anybody who wants to do anything like that, please come and talk to us.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks.